highlights of major macroeconomic trends in the country and the banking industry in 2020. Developments in the Nigerian banking sector, December 2019 to November 2020. Introduction. Nigeria's banking industry has been resilient and innovative in the period under review, despite its exposure to diverse shocks ignited by the global pandemic and its connectivity to all sectors of the economy. The regulators have been quite proactive in addressing key issues that promote the industry. Adoption of policy mix of orthodox and unconventional techniques. The unconventional monetary policies are geared to enhance price stability, real growth, full employment, and alleviate poverty. Aggressive intervention funds in key sectors such as agriculture, health, pharmaceuticals, manufacturing, among others. Digital banking platforms are revolutionizing the industry. Innovation of BVN 2.0 classification scheme into BVN Premium and BVN Lite. This was designed to bring on board more grassroots customers into the financial system and in turn reduce the financial exclusion rate for the country. Non-performing loans stood at average of 6.1% in December 2019. Enforcement of NPL limit of 5% in relation to gross loans. Monetary Policy Committee retained the MPR at 13.5%. Retained the asymmetric corridor at plus 200 to minus 500 basis points around the MPR. Retained the CRR at 22.5%. Retained the liquidity ratio at 30%. This pointer prompted all regulated institutions to develop internal policies to comply with the regulation with approval from their board of directors. The CBN issued the Consumer Protection Regulations, fair treatment of consumers, disclosure and transparency, responsible business conduct, complaints handling and redress, sanctions, compliance and amendment. Slashes in bank charges on e-channels, average of 50% to 80%. The real effect is on fee-based income for bankers. CBN targets to improve financial inclusion as 60% of transfers falls below 10,000 naira. January. The CBN issues guidelines on Nigeria payment system risks and information security management framework. Monetary Policy Committee outcome. 1. Raised the CRR from 22.5 to 27.5%. 2. To tame inflationary pressures. 3. Retained the MPR at 13.5%. 4. Retained the asymmetric corridor of plus 200 to minus 500 basis points around the MPR. 5. Retained the liquidity ratio at 30%. Updated lists of deposit money banks, microfinance banks, financial holding companies, bureau de change, and mortgage banks as of December 2019. Commercial, 22. Non-interest, 2. Merchant, 5. Financial holding companies, 4. Bureau de change, 5,156. Mortgage banks, 34. Finance companies, 79. Microfinance banks, 913. February. CBN reaffirmed ordinary domiciliary account deposit transfer not exceeding $10,000. 8 francophone countries opt for the ECO to replace the CFA. 6 Anglophone countries declined. Ghana supported the initiative but opted for the flexible exchange rate. March, the beginning of the new normal. The world began experiencing a health crisis that emanated from the outbreak of the novel coronavirus disease known as COVID-19 in December 2019. It was declared by the World Health Organization as a pandemic on the 11th of March 2020. This resulted in the partial, complete lockdown of many economies, including Nigeria, in order to save lives. Governments all around the world struggled to balance saving lives and keeping the economy running. The pandemic had far-reaching implications for households, businesses, and economies as they struggled for survival. Several lives were lost, including some prominent leaders in Nigeria. Globally, over 56.5 million confirmed cases were reported as of Thursday, 19th November 2020. The banking sector suffered likewise as non-performing loans grew. CBN responds to COVID-19. A year moratorium on CBN intervention facilities effective 1st of March. Interest rate reduction from 9% to 5% for a year. 50 billion naira target credit via Nursal Microfinance Bank for households and SMEs. Regulatory forbearance for deposit money banks to restructure loans and tenure for businesses affected by COVID-19. CBN released exposure draft guidelines for the regulation and supervision of microfinance banks. CBN released revised standards for NUBAN to include other financial institutions (OFIs) effective April 2020 and deadline of March 15, 2021 for full compliance. Monetary Policy Committee retained all monetary policy parameters and controlling rates. Liquidity surge due to repayment of matured TBs, FGN bonds, fiscal release to 3 tiers of government. Average prime and maximum lending rates rose to 15.01% and 30.70% respectively. Global and Nigeria stock markets turned bearish. External reserves fell from $38,092.7 billion in Q4 of 2019 to $33,689.1 billion in Q1 of 2020. Crude oil price fell as low as $17 per barrel by the end of March. Bankers Committee halted sale of forex to NNPC and directed all oil firms to sell directly to the CBN. April, CBN released policy response timeline to tackle effects of COVID-19 in the immediate, short, and medium term. Revised deadline for microfinance banks, MFBs, recapitalization by 1 year. CBN introduced new capital requirements for microfinance banks, compliance required by April 2020. Combined stimulus of 3.5 trillion naira in targeted measures to households, businesses, manufacturers, and healthcare providers. Moody downgraded Nigeria banking industry from stable to negative due to weakening loan quality and forex liquidity issues. Temporary suspension of check clearing. May. Suspension of layoff of bank staff by the Bankers Committee, triggered by rumor of downsized moves by some DMBs. Regulatory forbearance of credit facilities offered by OFIs. Restructured tenure or loan terms. Reduction of chargeback period for ATM, POS, and web transactions. Reversal of failed on us ATM from 3 days to immediate or 24 hours. Reversal of failed not on us ATM from 3 to 5 days to 48 hours. Refund on disputed failed POS web transaction from 5 days to 48 hours. Monetary Policy Committee. All monetary policy parameters and controlling rates retained, except MPR, which was reduced to 12.5%. June. Regional banks to operate in not less than 3 geopolitical zones. FEC approved 2.3 trillion naira Nigeria Economic Sustainability Plan. Exposure draft for regulatory framework for sandbox operation. July. CBN issued operational guidelines on global standing instructions. Release of intervention scheme to cater for non-interest financial institutions. CBN released the modalities for the implementation of the Creative Industry Financing Initiative, 22 billion naira funding. Senate passed Revised Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act, BOFIA. All monetary policy parameters retained. August. Abolition of third-party Form M payment. Global Standing Instruction effective 1st August 2020. September. Interest rate on local currency savings with minimum of 10% of MPR per annum. Release of framework for women financial inclusion. Compliance with SWIFT Universal Payment Confirmation. CBN Bankers Committee launched Cybersecurity Fraud Awareness Money Sense. Electronic payment transactions hit 11.29 trillion naira between January to September 2020, NIBBS, with 44% growth in value. Value of point-of-sales transactions also grew by 186%. Monetary Policy Committee reduced the MPR by 100 basis points from 12.5% to 11.5%. Adjusted asymmetric corridor of plus 200 to minus 500 to plus 100 to minus 700 basis points around the MPR. Retained the CRR at 27.5%. Retained the liquidity ratio at 30%. MPC's decision implications. Reduce the impact of COVID-19 on businesses and households. Boost aggregate demand. Stimulate production. Reduce unemployment. Support the recovery of output growth. Reduce inflationary effect, which has been ineffective. October. Approval granted by the CBN to mortgage refinancing companies to refinance non-member banks. November. President Buhari assented to BOFIA. Private sector-led agriculture development scheme. 12 specific focal commodities. Loan limit 2 billion naira per obliga. Annual crop maximum of 6 years with 6-month moratorium. Perennial crop maximum of 10 years with 1 year moratorium. CBN guarantees 50% credit risk in case of default. Key stakeholders: participating banks, anchor, smallholder farmers, land clearing service providers. Digital banking platforms, instant payment transfer. Comparative analysis of instant payment transfer, January to August 2019 to 2020. This reflects the surge in adoption of digital payment platforms, largely triggered by the COVID-19 lockdown and restriction of movement. Nigeria's financial sector growth. Capital market lead economic indicator. Downward trend from February 2020 to April 2020 reflects the effects of the COVID-19 lockdown. Relatively steady growth attributed to excess liquidity in the market and low interest yield in the money market. August to November 2020 reflects market repositioning for dividend payments. Way forward. End-to-end banking digitization. Alternative use of bank assets. Continuous advocacy for industry performance. Diversifying earnings and exports to minimize the impact of external shocks. Effective coordination and integration of digital systems among the players. Activities of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, CIBN, in 2020. Most of the Institute's activities this year were executed mostly via the online teleconferencing due to the COVID-19 restrictions. Among the activities implemented in the year under review were CIBN 2020 statutory programs and initiatives. CIBN Virtual Annual General Meeting. The Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, on Saturday, April 4th, 2020, successfully held its first ever virtual annual general meeting via the Zoom conference application. The landmark event was chaired by 20th President, Chairman of Council of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, Dr. Uche Messiah Olowu, FCIB. The major highlight of the event was the declaration of Mr. Bayo Williams Olugbemi, FCIB, as the 21st President, Chairman of Council of the Institute. 2. Valedictory Lecture of the 20th President, Chairman of Council, CIBN. On May 15, 2020, a virtual presidential valedictory lecture with the theme Ethics and Leadership, Effectiveness in Banks, the Role of Emotional Intelligence, was delivered by the 20th President, Chairman of Council, Dr. Uche Olowu, FCIB. 3. Investiture of the 21st President, Chairman of Council, CIBN. On Saturday, May 16, 2020, for the first time in the history of the CIBN, the investiture ceremony of its 21st President, Mr. Bayo Williams Olugbemi, FCIB, by way of hybrid execution, that is, physical and online, due to the precautionary measures of the pandemic. In his acceptance speech, titled Bracing for the Next Normal, he outlined the strategic intent of his administration to be executed in conformity with the existing CIBN Corporate Strategic Plan. The initiative, with the A-Team acronym, focuses on A. Accelerated development. T. Technology and digital enhancement. E. Engagement for growth. A. Accountability and transparent leadership. M. Membership drive for value. 4. 2020 Graduates Induction and Prize Awards Day. The 2020 CIBN Graduates Induction and Prize Awards Day was held on Saturday, August 29, 2020, with the theme, Digital Economy, the Role of Professional Bankers. 5. The 13th Annual Banking and Finance Conference. The 13th Annual Banking and Finance Conference, with the theme, Facilitating a Sustainable Future, the Role of Banking and Finance, was held on September 15 to 16, 2020. The theme was birthed out of the need to reposition the Nigerian banking and financial service industry as a catalyst for an inclusive, sustainable economic growth. This edition was led by Mr. Patrick Akinwutan, FCIB, with his team of dedicated and passionate members of the Conference Consultative Committee. As part of efforts to contain the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic and in strict adherence to the government protocols on the pandemic, the conference was executed as a hybrid of both physical and virtual. The event was held simultaneously at the Congress Hall of Transcorp Hilton Hotel Abuja, the Bankers House Lagos, and through Zoom teleconferencing. The conference had a total of 4,140 participants in attendance via the virtual and physical platforms. The participants were drawn from international and local institutions, cutting across the public and private sectors of the global economy. And the event was proudly sponsored by the Central Bank of Nigeria, Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation, and all banks in Nigeria. The 14th edition promises to be more exciting, an engagement to be led by the Group MD CEO of Access Bank PLC, Mr. Herbert Wigwe, FCIB. 6. 20th National Seminar on Banking and Allied Matters for Judges. The 20th edition of the National Seminar on Banking and Allied Matters for Judges, jointly organized by the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria CIBN and the National Judiciary Institute, the NJI, was held virtually via Zoom from November 10 to 11, 2020. The theme of the seminar was titled The Judiciary and the Financial Services Industry in the New Normal: Challenges, Innovation, and Regulations. The objectives of the seminar, which served as a forum for both banking sector and the judicial professionals, were to deliberate on issues concerning the sectors and prefer pragmatic and workable solutions to addressing issues relating to the practice of law and banking operations, among others. 2. CIBN Knowledge Events. With the aim of building the capacity of professionals and would-be professionals in the banking industry, the Institute held several knowledge events and capacity-building programs. 1. The 6th National Economic Outlook Session, Implications for Businesses in Nigeria. 2. The webinar on Risk Management and the Coronavirus, Strategic Action in a VUCA World. 3. Advocacy Dialogue Series 1 on COVID-19, Tough Choices for Banking and Other Businesses. 4. Advocacy Dialogue Series 2 on Enhanced Sustainable Banking ESB Model in event of major economic and business disruptions. 5. Advocacy Dialogue Series 3 Non-Performing Loans and the Global Standing Instruction GSI Policy, Impact and Insights for Financial Stability. 6. Platform Series 1 Unlocking the Timeless Codes for Entrepreneurship and Wealth Creation. And 7. Breakfast Session on the Virtual World, Repositioning for Change. 3. Capacity Building Programs. 1. CIBN Examinations. The 2 Diets professional examinations were combined due to the pandemic and was held on October 6 to 8, 2020. It was held in 30 centers across Nigeria and in Ghana, Liberia, Rwanda, Sierra Leone, the Gambia, and Zambia. 2. Professional Conduct and Ethics Certification. The annual Professional Conduct and Ethics Certification for the Nigerian banking industry, which commenced on July 15, 2019, continued in the year under review with a compliance level of 82.14% as at November 2020. The certification is designed to facilitate the understanding of ethics and professionalism in the banking sector in Nigeria, as well as align the practice of banking in Nigeria with global standards as prescribed by the Global Banking Education Standards Board, GBESTB. 3. Second edition of the Chartered Banker MBA CBMBA Scholarship Award. The CBMBA Scholarship Award, worth £16,000, was presented to the winner, a student of Adekunle Ajasin University. 4. Third edition of the Otumba Mrs. Debola Oshibogun Awards. The third edition of the Otumba Mrs. Debola Oshibogun National Essay Competition for undergraduates in banking and finance in Nigerian tertiary institutions, with the theme Leveraging Big Data to Enhance Sustainability in the Financial Services Sector, and CIBN's Examiners Award for Excellence and Outstanding Performance were held in the year. 4. Ethics and Professionalism. Resolved cases. As the Institute continues to espouse high ethical and professional conduct in the industry and among its members, it facilitated the resolution of 39 cases under the Bankers Committee Subcommittee on Ethics and Professionalism, from 64 cases received by the committee so far this year, and the rest are at various stages of resolution. Despite the disruptions brought about by the pandemic, the Institute persevered in providing value for its members and the banking community at large. We look forward to providing more value in 2021 and beyond.